Yeah, the interesting thing, right? Because I've been talking to people whenever they play the Browns. Offensively, it's always been like, okay, we got to stop Nick Chubb. We got to load the box, make the quarterback beat us, no matter who the quarterback has been over the last 4 years. And it always like hits me. I'm like, man, everybody been saying load the box against them all this time. I think this is the one time where the Browns offense is actually able to make people pay when they load the box. Because if you put Amari Cooper in man coverage 1-on-1 and all he has to do is beat his man to get free, Jacoby's able to hit him there and stay patient in that pocket. So as you guys know, game week, I always like to get the perspective of somebody who is closer with their team than I am to their team, right? I don't know if that made sense how I worded it, but basically I want to get the perspective of somebody who follows the Falcons day in and day out, lives that Falcon life, blowing leads, all that stuff. I'm just playing with you.
Oh man.
This is Tre. He also works with Falcons ATB, I believe, and there's also a podcast that you work with too.
Yeah, that's right. Falcons underscore ATB on Twitter. It's the Around the Block Network, and we also run a pod over there, the New Millennium Falcons podcast as well.
Yeah, see, I was thinking about this game, and when you look at both these franchises' histories, it's like, man, it's the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. Like, if one of these teams get up 21, bet on the other team. Like that, you talking about two fan bases that are uncomfortable with leads.
Man, that's very true. There's a lot that the Falcons and Browns fans can actually bond over, I think, and maybe we could do that after the game. We'll have to see how it goes, but you're right. I think when you look at these two fan bases, I don't know if anybody has been burned more by their teams than we have, man.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting. Both teams are kind of in a transition, right? The Falcons are in this in-between period between Matt Ryan and whatever's next. And the same thing for the Browns. They're in a shorter in-between period between, obviously, Baker Mayfield. Now there's Jacoby Brissett, and then Deshaun Watson later in the year. What's it been like with Marcus Mariota there? Like, what's the long-term plan there in Atlanta? And then also, what's the thoughts around the level of play that Marcus is giving you guys?
It's kind of a mixed bag with Marcus right now. So I gotta be honest, he's a great guy, great locker room presence. And that's kind of what makes him easy to bench. He's a guy that he's not going to give you too much trouble, and he's going to help the next man up, which is what most fans believe is Desmond Ridder, third round pick out of Cincinnati. He's kind of sitting in the wings right now, waiting. Mark has lost us 2 games so far with some of his play. He's been a little careless with the football. If you look at that Saints game, week 1, blew the lead, fumbled in the red zone. They could have put it away. So, I'd say Marcus is doing maybe just enough to keep us competitive and keep us in games that maybe people didn't expect. But people are ready for the rookie to get a run, and I don't think we'll see it until maybe halfway through the season. But to Marcus's credit, he is a lot better than the guy that got benched at the very end of his Tennessee tenure. I think he has put it together a little bit more. And what's interesting is Arthur Smith was the guy that benched him in Tennessee. So, Arthur felt comfortable bringing him back after going through that. And, he's done enough to help, but he's hurt the team a little bit too.
Yeah, it's always that kind of weird area when you have one of these transition quarterbacks. How do they feel about Desmond Ridder? Like, are the reports that were coming out of camp especially like glowing for him? Because I remember him coming out of Cincinnati. My biggest issue with Desmond as a prospect was like, when you watch Cincinnati's offense, he wasn't the best player on it. And that concerned me, for him, because he would have like 4.5 speed. You never saw that when he was playing with Cincinnati, and that kind of stuff concerns me. What's it been like for him in his transitions to the pros?
I think he set a pretty good transition. It's only preseason, but in his first preseason game, he was able to lead a game-winning drive and finish off with a touchdown. The staff speaks highly of him. Arthur Smith has come out and said that we're not treating you like a rookie. We are treating you like a vet, and those are the expectations we have on you. And I think they really want to see him earn and win that job. But the feeling around them right now is that he's the guy. People said, leading into the draft that, Desmond Ridder, I agree with you, didn't stand out as the best player on Cincinnati. The other knock I had on Ridder coming out was just his accuracy. He had the tendency to sail some throws. And we did see that come up a little bit in the preseason, but at this stage, people are excited, people are high on the kid, and within the building, it seems to be like, they feel like they have somebody who could potentially be the guy of the future, but that remains to be seen.
Yeah, it's always tough to gauge those young quarterbacks. I mean, you can see what even San Francisco is going through with Trey Lance. They gave up three first-round picks for him. Offensively, what's the strength of this team? I mean, you guys got Drake London, a lot of like wide receivers over there. Is that the passing attack? Is that the strength of this Falcons team, or has it been Cordero Patterson, who just had an unbelievable game last week?
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear this, but we have the fifth best rushing attack right now in the league, averaging somewhere around 150 yards a game. So it all starts with the run, and that's what Arthur Smith wants to do, right? Back when he had Derrick Henry, that's how he built everything off the offense, was off of that. So it's definitely CPAT right now, but Drake London is really flashing, and hey, they finally got Kyle Pitts the ball after he was, seemingly not on the field for the first two games. So we'll see if the passing game starts to tick up a bit.
All right, so when you look at this matchup for the Falcons offense against this Browns defense, we don't know what's going to happen with Myles Garrett at this point if he's playing. It's kind of like it's one of those things. Like Cam Newton had a car accident very similar to that. I think in 2014, his car flipped over like 6 times. Ironically enough, he was playing the Browns that week. He came back from 6 days and beat the Browns with 2 bad vertebrae in his neck. People still don't act like Cam tough. That's crazy to me. But we'll see what happens with Myles if he plays, if he doesn't. We don't even know if Jadeveon Clowney is going to be back. He missed last week's game with the foot injury. So knowing that the Browns won't have those edge rushers, is that really incentivized Arthur Smith to even go harder at the run, knowing that the Browns might not have their best 2 run defenders?
I think it will. I think you'll really see. So going into week 3 against the Seahawks, we actually saw the team make some interesting roster moves. They called down a couple wide receivers and called up tight end Anthony Ferkser. They started running a lot more 12 personnel, a lot of 2 tight end duo running back sets. So I do think he wants to build off that. That was the most complete game the team had last week. And like you said, with the potential miss of Myles Garrett, which glad he's all right. Also had no idea a man of that size could fit into a 911. So glad he's okay, man. And like you said, with Clowney being gone too, there's definitely going to be a lot of pressure, I think, on the outside. It'll be interesting to see how those matchups go.
Yeah, he probably had a custom cabin made or something.
Yeah, dude.
That thing sits low. That can't be comfortable, right? Like,
No.
feel like, because I don't know if anybody's ever sat in one of those cars before, or just sit in a Mazda 3. You don't even got to sit in the Porsche. Like just like a Mazda 3 and just realize like you feel like you scooting on the floor on one of those. And I'm not Myles Garrett's size at all, right? Like not even close. Like, I don't know what he felt like he was that. Thank goodness he got out of that one without any kind of life-altering injuries. That was very scary for him. All right, let's flip sides to this defense for the Falcons. I think this is where both, like the Browns defense, we have the most question marks here. We thought the defense was going to be the sure thing for this team. But so far, the sure thing, surprisingly enough, has been Jacoby Brissett, this offense's run game, which the run game is the run game. We knew that was going to be good coming in. We just didn't know if the passing game would be good enough to supplement it. But now you're going up against that rushing attack, right? Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. You've seen what they've been able to do. You've seen what Jacoby Brissett's been able to do. As a fan of the Falcons, when you look at this matchup defensively, what concerns you the most, and what matchup specifically?
Man, it's the run game. I will say right now, we're kind of in the similar situation. Everybody came into this season thinking that the defense was actually going to be kind of carrying the Falcons. And for us, right now, the Falcons and the Browns are the only 2 teams to score 26 plus points in all 3 of their games. And given the situation that we were all looking at the beginning of the season, I don't think anybody would have thought that Jacoby Brissett and Marcus Mariota would be the QBs leading that kind of an offense. So, but man, it's the run game. Chubb, man, he's especially down here in Georgia. You know, he gets a lot of respect from a lot of the Atlanta fans. We got a lot of diehard UGA guys in here, and then Kareem Hunt behind him after that. Grady Jarrett's doing Grady Jarrett things, but he doesn't have much help on the interior. So I think we're really going to see some conflict there, and I think we're going to have to figure out a way to, you cannot stop it. You can only hope to contain it, right? So we're going to have to figure out a way to try and put the ball in Jacoby Brissett's hands a little bit more. But with that being said, the pass defense, the secondary for Atlanta has not lived up to, I think, the potential that they should be. AJ Terrell got a couple of times in the first two games. He had a nice bounce back game last week. Casey Hayward had a game to forget last week, though, on top of that. So I think we're in for maybe a more high scoring affair than people expect.
Yeah, the interesting thing, right? Because I've been talking to people whenever they play the Browns. Offensively, it's always been like, okay, we got to stop Nick Chubb. We got to load the box, make the quarterback beat us, no matter who the quarterback has been over the last 4 years. And it always like hits me. I'm like, man, everybody been saying load the box against them all this time. I think this is the one time where the Browns offense is actually able to make people pay when they load the box, because if you put Amari Cooper in man coverage one-on-one and all he has to do is beat his man to get free, Jacoby's able to hit him there and stay patient in that pocket, where other times the situation wasn't that. So, it's interesting to see what this defense is going to do, because if they don't have faith in their secondary, they're not necessarily going to want to stack the box, right? Because if you don't trust your secondary, you cannot be out here stacking boxes. So I don't know what they're going to come out with. But I mean, the same thing kind of goes on Cleveland side. We've been blowing a lot of coverages. We've been having a lot of miscommunication errors in the secondary level, similar to AJ Terrell. I don't think Denzel Ward has been himself the last few games. So, it's kind of like that Spider-Man meme where we're pointing at each other. Hey, this is you. No, this is me. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like these same problems exist on both sides for these teams. If the Atlanta Falcons were to win this game in your mind, what kind of game do they have to play on both sides to get this victory for them?
On the offensive side, they're going to have to stay clean. The reason that we were able to win that Seahawks game is they only had one fumble, which still one too many, but in both of the first two games, they had at least two turnovers. So Marcus is going to have to play clean. He's going to have to make sure that he's not making any mistakes, not forcing any balls. I think we need to make sure that Drake London and Pitts get involved as much as they can. And on the defensive side of the ball, they just got to clean up, some of the confusion, some of what you were saying, our own secondary kind of looking lost at times. But the defensive line is really, really going to have to show up. The run defense specifically, they've got a really, really big task ahead of them this week. So I think that's what it's going to take.
Well, how you guys feel about your linebacking core over there? Like, has that been a problem or a point of discussion in Atlanta?
Yeah, so big change up this year. New starters at both linebacker positions. So Mykal Walker is filling in this year. He's the new green dot. So he is the leader on the defense. Third-year player out of Fresno State. Big shoes to fill with Foye Oluokun leaving and going to Jacksonville. And then next to him, he's got Rashaan Evans. And Rashaan is pretty much filling in Deion Jones, who is on IR. Both have looked great. Both look like they belong in this system. Rashaan has played under Pease previously with his days at Tennessee, and Mykal Walker has really answered the bell. And we've started to see rookie Troy Anderson out of Montana State, second-round pick, get a lot more run. Interestingly enough, the Falcons opened up with a 2-5-4 defensive alignment against the Seahawks, and we saw Troy Anderson coming in as an extra line. I know, think about that for a second. A 2-5-4.
Did they still have 4 down on the defensive line, or were they?
So they stacked the linebackers out on the edge in a 2-point stance and brought in Troy Anderson to play the extra backer. It was a lineup that we had not seen the entire season. And I don't know if that was
Georgia
maybe
run some of that.
I think they
Georgia
do.
used to
It's
run that like
definitely
when
a
they had
college
Azeez
defense.
Ojulari, and they used to run it with Jermaine Johnson, Azeez Ojulari, and then Trevon Walker would be the extra backer, and they would have like Jordan Davis, and I think what was it, Devontae Carter in the inside. They ran. I think they ran it a lot. Cincinnati, the bowl game that they had against them.
Yeah. So they got a lot of the linebackers on the field at once, so they seem to be really confident with that group compared to maybe some of the other ones on the team.
That's interesting. So, if there's a weakness on the offensive side of the ball that you feel like the Browns defense can exploit, what do you think that weakness is? What are you like, hey, if this starts to go this way in this game offensively for us, we're in a really bad spot because they're hitting what we can't be hit at?
So I'm not sure if he'll be back this game, but last week left guard Elijah Wilkinson was out and we had to play Colby Gossett. It was his first start of the year, and I want to say maybe the first start of his career. He did draw a couple of holding penalties. Overall, he played a kind of clean game, but there, and then I think right tackle Caleb McGarry is another guy who is pretty up and down with his play. So I think, getting to the passer, getting Marcus Mariota uncomfortable, if they can get him to kind of make some of the mistakes that we saw in week 1 and week 2, I think that they're really going to have a good chance of knocking off Atlanta's rhythm that they have going right now and taking advantage of those matchups.
And then if we flip it, when the Falcons are out there on defense, what's the thing if you're like, oh man, if the Browns are able to do this, we're in real big trouble?
So AJ Terrell's my guy, but Amari Cooper looks. Amari Cooper looks like. He looks fresh. He looks happy to be somewhere new, and he's tearing it up. So AJ did a good job when he had to line up across from DK last week. He had a lot of good plays, broke up a touchdown pass. But Amari Cooper brings a lot of similar problems that I think guys like Michael Thomas bring. And AJ Terrell struggles with the guys who are more physical at the line, the guys who aren't afraid to mix it up. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to, have another good game. And then on the flip side, if they don't like what they see in that matchup, Casey Hayward, man, he looked a little old last week. That's all I'm going to say is he just looked a little old last week. So, if I'm the Browns, that's probably who I'm throwing at to start the game, because I want to see what Casey Hayward's got, see if last week was maybe just a one-off or maybe the decline is finally here.
Well, it's one of them like 2 teams in 2 years situations for him, right? Because he was on the Raiders last year, right? And once you get to that, once you start hitting your Pat Peterson arc, gets rough.
It does.
It can get rough. But Tre, thank you for coming on. Let them know where to find you again, man.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Tre3shon, Tre3shon. And you can also find me at the Falcons ATB. That's Falcons _ATB network. And we run a podcast as well on that site, the New Millennium Falcon podcast. So, come check us out. Really appreciate you bringing me in here, Quincy. It was great to talk ball. I think we're going to have a pretty good game coming up this Sunday. So I really like this matchup.
We'll see how it goes down. Browns Falcons, it just sound like something weird going to happen. We've already had the weird Jets game go down this year. You guys had the weird the Rams game came down where you almost came back and then they just came back over top of you. I'm prepared for whatever this game gives me. I know the Browns I've been telling my the viewers of this channel, this is going to be clinch butt cheek season with Jacoby Brissett, because this is going to be a lot of tight wins. You know what I mean? A lot of tight. It's going to be tight if we get these wins out during the suspension. But that's just how it's going to have to be. Again, thank you for coming out here. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.